What's up, everybody? Brian Ronovich, LasVegasWrestlingScene.com, back here on YouTube. Been a little bit since I've done any videos, but I feel like we're going to be back on track now, talking about the latest and greatest in the Las Vegas wrestling scene. So I want to talk about MECCA IX from Sunday. Future Stars of Wrestling's biggest show, or at least one of them. They usually do a couple Meccas a year, surrounded by the other top local shows like No Escape, The Anniversary, Survival of the Fittest, Against the Odds, etc. The Mecca went off last night, main event, or Sunday. Chris Bay defended the Mecca Grand Championship against John Morrison. It was a good match, as you would expect from both of those guys. The faction came out at the end, acted like, looked like Braxton was going to cash in the case, but ended up just being a really clever swerve. Morrison came back in, shut the whole thing down. Faction hightailed it out. So still nothing yet for No Belt Braxton, as everybody seems to be waiting with bated breath for him to cash in the case that he won last year in the ladder match. So that glare on my glasses is driving me crazy. So anyway, speaking of the faction wrestled Team Filthy in the six-man, and that was really a terrific trios match. The faction certainly didn't look like they were out of their element or unable to compete, or they were right there the whole time. I talk about this a lot. I say that sometimes wrestlers, they look bigger. They look bigger in big moments. Even Fresco. I remember when Fresco wrestled Kenny King last year. Fresco looked the same size as Kenny King. Not that he's smaller than Kenny, but it's just, I think that in those big moments, in those big matches, certain talents, they just find a way that they just look bigger. They look like they belong there. The faction certainly looked like they belonged there with Team Filthy, and they do belong there. It was a very good match. Filthy went over. Filthy got the win. Big win for them. Royce Isaacs pinned Watson. I believe he submitted it, tapped out Watson. I believe he tapped him. And so they got the victory, hoping that this is going to break into two matches. Hopefully, I'm hoping to see Ice Williams defend the FSW title against Tom Lawler, and then we might get a tag team title match out of that with the faction. Defended the titles against Royce Isaacs and Jarrell Nelson, the former two-time FSW tag champ. So could be something real good there. Might get Hammerstone and Kenny King in a rematch. That triple threat with Sam Adonis was good. I love Sam Adonis. I wish he was able. I think he lives back east somewhere, maybe Pittsburgh. I wish he was out here more often. He's a really entertaining wrestler. He still keeps his heat with the fans here. He goes right after the previous fans that booed him before. He remembers them. Like, he knows he runs the room. The moment he breaks through that curtain, Sam Adonis is in charge, and he's a lot of fun to watch. I wish like I said, love to see him more often here. Hope to see this Kenny King Hammerstone. Could be an anniversary match. Who knows? Maybe Mecca again. But those two in a rematch on a much bigger stage, I think, would be more than worth it. More than we saw them last year at the FSW Arena. The faction interrupted the proceedings. I talked about that, which, by the way, I'll put the recap for MECCA IX will be in the bio or in the comments from Sunday night. But and I liked the little bit. The first time it was wrestled, there really wasn't any build to it, so you really didn't have anything. You had these two Vegas icons in the indie game, and there really was no build. It was just like, boom, Kenny King versus Hammerstone, the FSW title. Well, this time there was a little heat at the end of the match. Hammerstone pinned Adonis. For a minute there, it seemed like King and Hammer were kind of going to work together, but then Hammer just decided, hell, I'll just pin Sam Adonis myself. And got the win, and then those two kind of had a little bit of a stare down. No altercations, no fisticuffs or anything of that nature. But they definitely left some stuff. So I'd like to see those guys do it again, like I said, with a little bit more heat. I think it would be a lot of fun. Wolf Saddies win again. They own the casino shows. All they do is beat former FSW Tag Team Champions. They beat formerly 1%, Royce and Jarrell at was it at Against All Odds. Was that against the Against All Odds pay per view? The one when Graves beat Bay when the middle rope broke. Um, if you don't remember that, but that was the main event. After Graves stole the Rumble match victory from Shogun, Rich Homie Show should have gotten a title shot that night against Chris Bay. He still should get that rematch. I've been saying this for years. It's never happened. Probably never gonna. Although it could for the Mecca Grand Championship. But anyway, Graves beat Bay that night, and but also that night the Wolzadis took down 1%, and that was the last time we saw him until this Sunday. So nonetheless, Wolf Daddies win the four-way. TBD. Speaking of Rich Homie Show and Hero Lou are having issues still. Hero keeps getting pinned. Shogun's taking him to task on it. Kind of feel like a breakup's coming. That's a team I've been really high on for a couple of years since their Halloween show debut as the Acolytes. But it looks like these two might be heading towards a match, which they've wrestled before. One-on-one. I believe they've wrestled. I'm pretty sure they've wrestled one-on-one before. But it was a while back, obviously. They've been a tag team for a couple of years. But those two might be on a collision course for a match. So far, nothing's happened with them, but it's been a couple shows in a row where TBD's come out on the losing end, and they were winning a lot of wrestling matches, so clearly there's some frustrations there. And we'll end up seeing how that ends up playing out. So, those were the. Jay Vidal was back. Jay Vidal was back as a babyface, which was a lot of fun to see. He's a heel, I believe, in Impact right now. He was a heel here before he left, and then he did the thing with Matt Vandergriff when he got inducted, when he got put up on the wall. But he was a straight baby face tonight, or on Sunday. And good match with Effie as expected. And it was nice because the fans got to really enjoy him, and he was loving the fans. And anytime I've ever heard anything about Jay Vidal, is that he's the nicest person they've ever met. I've heard that from so many people. And so it was nice to see him back. And I'd like to see him wrestle G-Sharp. G-Sharp and TJP was a great match. I don't want to forget to mention that one. I think that was probably the best match of the night. Jay Vidal and G-Sharp, they never had they had their finish match, their blow-off match at Survival of the Fittest in 2021 when Sharp won the last man standing match. They never did another one. I think it's been enough time. It's been close to 2 years, so love to see those two guys again if Jay's going to be around a bit. And it sure seems like it. He's been in other local shows around town, so we'll see. So let's switch gears away from FSW to BVW. Big Valley Wrestling made their debut. Bash at the Square. They were literally in this little corridor, not a corridor, courtyard. In this courtyard, right next to where the Sierra Event Center is. And they had the show in there. I would say maybe 100 people, 50 to 100 people. But it felt bigger than it was. They were coming down the stairs to the ring, and it was cool. It was a cool little intimate vibe, and some good matches. We got Papa Yase and Matt Vandergriff coming out of this one, and Big Valley did just announce this too. It's going to be a Clash at the Cadence 2. If you remember the Clash at Cadence last year at the football stadium, this one's going to be in the gym. From what I've been told, might even be on their flyer now. Although I haven't seen a flyer. That shows in May 20th. But it's going to be Papa Yase defending the Las Vegas Championship against Matt Vandergriff. Those two have never wrestled one-on-one, and I think this match is going to be terrific. Papa's put together a tremendous year to kick off 2023. I mean, we were talking about him retiring, and he might be we've talked about his breakout the last 2 years. This might be the best of the years so far. He's looked sensational. And Matt Vandergriff, people that have been getting in the ring with Matt Vandergriff are having their best matches. So this to me looks like magic. Cannot wait for this one. Papiase defended the Las Vegas Championship against Matt Vandergriff. Fresco Matic wrestled the Shade in a last minute. That was also a last minute standing match. Good match. Fresco and Shade could wrestle in my living room, and it would be a really good match. I mean, those two guys just work really well together. The feud's legit. So it really makes no difference how much time's between matches. These two don't like each other, and they just like to punch each other in the face. And Fresco tried to throw Shade down the steps, and then Fresco got thrown down the steps. Fortunately, Fresco didn't get hurt. He had a pretty big match the next night, but nonetheless, Big Valley, another good show. They know how to run these, and so it was a good night, and they got a really good match built out of it. So that's the recap from this past week. Oh, SmackDown. Let me touch on SmackDown real quick. There was no local love from SmackDown. This was nothing like we saw with AEW and Double or Nothing last year, and hopefully we'll see this year again. Memorial Weekend. There was nobody. Solo Sokoa was in a dark match, and he didn't really get much of a pop. Which, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. But the Carry On Cross was not on the card. There were no. We heard rumors that when Gabe Sapolsky was here, he was gonna, they were gonna be all these guys showing up, getting the chances, and nothing, zero from what we were told. Didn't see anybody on the show, so a little bit disappointing there. But that's WWE. I was talking to a friend of mine, and they just said WWE's a monolith. They just they're just such a big corporate entity. But I don't think we'll have that issue when Double or Nothing is here Memorial Weekend. And one final thing that I wanted to touch on there was one more thing I wanted to touch on. So we talked about SmackDown. That was great to see. Big Valley, FSW, WrestleMania this weekend. If you're going to be in SoCal, go see some of your favorites. There's plenty of wrestlers. I know Papiase is going out there. Bodie Prodigy's out there. Kid Isaac's going, and many, many more. I talked to a couple people that have decided to take the weekend off. They didn't really want to get into, they didn't want to get into anything out there. They just felt like I had to go out there for one or two matches. Kind of cost them too much money, but plenty of other people are taking that run, taking that look. So if you're in Southern California this weekend, make sure you check out your favorite Las Vegas stars and show them some love. I'm Brian Ronovich with LasVegasWrestlingScene.com. This is News and Notes.